So last year I made a video on how I got into Oxford Engineering without being a maths or a physics genius. And recently I've been getting a ton of questions about the new syllabus, the new admissions exam. So I'm going to tell you exactly how I would do it if I was to do it all over again. Thank goodness I don't have to, but in case you want to, this is what I would focus on. So obviously this year the structure has changed. Essentially all of the same 4 things are required: the predicted grades, then the personal statement, then the admissions exam, and then finally the interview. So this year, predicted grades haven't changed. The personal statement has been given a new structure, and I've made a complete video about this recently, so I'll link that one. But essentially, instead of being one long essay, it's separated into 3 separate questions for you to follow. Again, they want to see what brings you to the university, why should they pick you? They need to see why you're motivated to study the subject, how have you prepared to study it, and also the supercurriculars you do outside of school and how they link to academics. But all of that is in the video I have already made before. Secondly, the admissions test has changed. So previously Oxford had the PAT, the physics aptitude test, which was in 2 separate sections but 1 single exam, some multiple choice and then some long answer questions. This year they have switched to the ESAT, which is what Cambridge and now also Imperial use. So all the 3 big universities have streamlined into a single exam, which is very good for you. Again, the process for this is just keep doing practice papers. Whatever you do, just always focus on practice papers. There is 1 ESAT sample paper out. If you need more revision, use the PAT from previous years and the ENGA from the years before as well. That's exactly what I did through all of my summer before year 13. And that's what helped me get into Oxford in the end. Finally, we have the interview. Again, whatever anyone says, no one knows how the interview works. We all just think we know. The best way to practice for this is to watch videos online. I can throw out a bunch of practice questions. I've done a ton of work with students practicing for their interviews. Basically, it's just creative questions in maths and physics. I know that's a little bit vague, but look a little bit online. There's good practice questions online. I want to study engineering.com, great practice questions for that. There's a similar difficulty. If you want a specific video for this, I can try and make one, but essentially Google a little bit, see what questions are like. If you know someone that went to Oxford or Cambridge for engineering, ask them to do a practice interview. It's super, super helpful. So yeah, that's how the structure of the admissions process has changed in the last year or so. So now if we go into each specific section into a little bit more detail, let's start off with the predicted grades. So you go onto the UCAS system, you apply in year 12, they want your predicted grades. Now you have your GCSEs and also your A-levels. From my experience, Oxford doesn't really care about the GCSEs. If it does, it also contextually ranks them. And so if you didn't do so well in the GCSEs, it also takes into account which school you went to, your neighborhood, things like this. So if you get great GCSEs from a little bit poorer Ofsted ranked school, that is great. If you get okay GCSEs from a great school, that is a little bit worse. But whatever anyone says, don't care about your GCSEs. They really just show one thing, and that is how you have learned in the past. But even if your GCSEs are bad and your A-level predicted grades are great, that shows that you have put in a ton of effort to get to the position that you're in. So whatever your GCSEs say, don't worry about them. Next is the A-levels, so the predicted grades. For engineering, you ideally should be doing maths and physics at least. And so Oxford, for me, just wanted A star, A star, A in maths, physics, and a 3rd subject. That 3rd subject is probably best to be further maths, but it doesn't really matter. As I said in a previous video about Oxford being the best university for engineering, they will teach you further maths in the first 2 weeks, and so you can look forward to that if you don't take further maths, but don't worry about it for now. If you're doing maths and physics, you're on the perfect track for getting into Oxford, and try and get those predicted grades as high as possible going into year 13. Okay, great. So predicted grades are covered. I believe they're also contextualized. So if you're going to a little bit of a poorer school, they will take that into consideration. But again, I don't really know how they do that. It just happens. Just make sure they're as high as possible. That's all that's in your control. Moving on to the personal statement. As I said, I have a long video on how to best write your personal statement for the new format. Essentially, they have stripped away the 1 question essay and converted that into a 3 question essay instead. Asking the same sort of things, just now giving you a beautiful structure for you to just kind of fill in. So follow the framework I talk about, which is for each question, the motivation for the subject, the preparedness for the subject, and the supercurriculars. Follow the structure I talk about in that video. Start as soon as possible. Write 4 or 5 bullet points for each question, then write sentences for them, and then finally string them all together. As long as you're able to do that, perfect. Again, Oxford, I don't think too hard about the personal statement because they have a lot of other information to go off of. Whereas for some universities, they only have the personal statement to look at. Here, they have your personal statement, they have your admissions test score, they have your interview, they have so much other information that personal statement isn't really that important for them, I think, but you want to make sure it's as good as possible, obviously. Then third is your admissions test. Here is where things start to get super important. The admission test has to be good. You're competing against the best students in the world, not just England, the best students in the world in maths and physics, and so you have to try and get this result as high as possible. How do you do this? Well, you just do practice exams. Because the ESAT is a new paper, I've only found one sample paper online, but that doesn't mean you should just do that one. Practice the PAT from previous years, the ENGA from previous years, and that should get you on track. Basically, they try and cover all of the topics from A-level physics and maths, and technically it's at a GCSE level, but saying this makes a lot of my students feel a little bit stupid. It's super hard. It is technically at GCSE level, but realistically it's not really. The questions are super creative, super difficult, but there are common themes. With the electrical topics, they love to ask questions on transformers. With the thermal engineering, they love to ask things about specific heat capacity. So there are themes that go through the admissions test, which you can only see if you try at least 6 or 7 of them. So my biggest tip is do as many of these past papers as possible to just build your confidence. And again, you don't need perfect results. You just need to be good enough. For my international students, if you are applying from abroad and you might not be doing the A-level syllabus, I would strongly encourage you to look at the A-level syllabus, because from what I've seen, the ESAT follows the UK syllabus very closely. Look at A-level exams in maths and physics, see what types of questions there are, see what topics you might be missing, and try and focus on those. To summarize, the score doesn't have to be perfect, you just have to be good enough. I definitely didn't get a perfect score. I just got over the mark to get an interview. Once you get the interview, great news. You'll get your results about Christmas. You cannot relax over Christmas. You will probably be having an interview over Christmas. Again, before I start this, no one knows what the interview is like. They can all just say what they have seen, say what they have heard about it. No one knows what it's like. It's literally up to the professor on the day to just pick questions that they find interesting and ask you about them. But for context, my interview, I applied for St. John's College. And so one of my interviews was at St. John's College and the second interview was at Mansfield College. So I got 2 interviews for engineering. The questions were super varied. One thing that I now see is that one of the professors that was interviewing me, there was 2. So one professor is taking notes and the other one is asking the questions. The questions were all on biomechanics. And then in 4th year, I realized that the lecturer lecturing me was my interviewer before I got in, and she lectured biomechanics. So from what I've seen, they love to stick to their subject and ask you questions that they are familiar with, that they come across in their lectures. So if you get an interview, I would suggest maybe look at what the professors interviewing you are focused on in their research and in their work, and just have it in the back of your mind that they might ask you questions within their specific fields. Practicing for the interview is super difficult, because you either pay someone a ton of money to give you a practice interview, or you can go online. There are probably some practice interviews. The way I did it was just literally Googling past interview questions, trying to figure out what they would ask me, but no one knows. So try Googling around, see what type of questions they like to ask, and just practice on those. One thing I would suggest is graph sketching is super important. So practice your graph sketching. If you get any graph, a trigonometric function, an algebraic rational function, know how to sketch these beforehand, because there might be because in both of my interviews there was 2 questions on graph sketching in each, and so it seems like a common theme, at least for me. The other questions were pretty varied, so I had that biomechanics question from the biomechanics professor. I had some question on moments to do with an aircraft from a aeronautical engineering professor. Then I had some kinematics questions. Again, super varied, but within the syllabus of maths and physics, A-level, and doable if you do enough practice. So those are the 4 steps, the things that have changed and the things that have stayed the same. One other thing to mention is the process is super stressful, super tiring. Everyone understands that, but trust me, it's worth it if you want to go and study engineering at Oxford. The workload, if you're doing 4 A-levels, is probably, in my opinion, at least 50% higher, if not double the workload doing 4 A-levels. And I thought A-levels was hard until I got to Oxford. If you're finding it stressful, just know that it's a reflection of what there is to come when you get in. But if you love your subject, if you love engineering, go for it. Why not? One thing that definitely happened to me was the imposter syndrome of just thinking that I'm not good enough, thinking that there are people from much better schools that will get in. And so I kind of went through the whole process, just trying my best, obviously, but being very skeptical of the fact that I could get in. And so one thing is just trust yourself, believe yourself, just work hard on it, and the work will pay off. Even if it doesn't pay off, that work is still there and will be useful at any other university. And aside from this is, with this workload comes sacrifice. As I mentioned in my previous video, I am a big sports person. I trained swimming for 6 years going through school. I trained football as well for 5 years going through school. And so I had training every day of the week and sometimes 2 trainings a day. And to get into Oxford, I sacrificed that football training in my last year just to focus on the admissions process. And so it does take some sacrifice, definitely. But if you think it's worth it, then it's worth it. One thing is that once you finish your interview and get your results in January or February about if you actually get a place, then you have to get the A-level grades. So once you get your offer, the stress doesn't stop. It's just an added layer of pressure to get those A-level grades. But once you do, and once you finish your A-levels and go on holiday, you can forget about the admissions process, the A-levels. And when you get back from holiday and get your results and see if you got into your dream university, it will be so much sweeter. And so now going through the process, don't think about how hard it is or how stressful it is. I know it probably sucks. The weather in England is terrible. If you're not from England, thank goodness your weather is probably much nicer unless you're in Hong Kong or Singapore. But it's not meant to be an easy ride. And so thank goodness the weather is bad, because that just makes you go to the library, makes you study more. While you're going through this process, it is essential to have friends that are going through this process as well. So find someone with the similar ambition as you of getting into top universities and just work with them. That's exactly what I did for those 2 years at A-level, and that's probably a big reason that got me through. Tell your family, tell your friends that you're focused on work, and they will support you as well. And finally, just keep dreaming big. This is an exceptional step to take just to even consider going to these universities, and just believe in yourself and things will work out. Obviously, hard work is a given. You have to sacrifice a lot, you have to work hard, but just consider it a reflection of the continuation of that hard work once you get to these universities, because it's the grind doesn't stop at these universities. Getting in is one part, and then continuing for 3 or 4 years is a completely separate game, but we can talk about that once you get in. Best of luck with your admissions process, and if you have any questions, let me know below. I love answering the questions. Just ask away down there and I will get back to you. But thanks for watching the video and best of luck. Bye.